Good evening, my friends, or good afternoon. Welcome to 15-Minute Free Thinking with me, Carpo. And today I have a very somber topic, and one that I honestly don't even know how to break into. So instead of giving you the usual hubbub and welcome intro, I'd like to just get straight into it, because it is a very sensitive topic, and it's one that I feel deserves the respect of getting to the point and not messing around. I waited a few days on this because first of all, I didn't really want to talk about it, but second of all, I feel like the media hounds they had just attacked these topics and just run them into the ground, and that a lot of the average people just want to back away from it and not discuss it because it's too controversial, it's too sensitive. It always brings up politics, you know. All it takes is one comment on a YouTube video, and it turns into a left-right debate about firearms and Democrats, and it usually goes nowhere. And I know that everyone pays attention at least a little to the news, but for anyone who's unaware, there was a school shooting, and a guy walked in and, shot 19 children and 2 teachers. Now, this is not. I think the very unfortunate aspect of this, more than anything, aside from the tragedy of the children themselves and the teachers, is the fact that people have become so accustomed to this. And it brings to mind a South Park episode, not to make light of this, where there were school shootings going on consistently, and they were just carrying on with class with active shooters in the hallways every day at school for that episode. And it was way over the top and pretty ridiculous, but it was at a time when that's kind of how people had become. Not purposefully. It's not that people are callous or don't care. It's almost like we're numb because we don't know what to do. A lot of people want to point the finger at the firearms themselves, and that's where I want to tread lightly on this topic, because I consider myself a liberal-minded person, but I'm also a Second Amendment supporter. I grew up with firearms in my home. My father taught me how to shoot when I was younger and how to respect firearms. But it's more than just learning and respecting. There's a huge mental health aspect that is being completely ignored. It's not about whether you ban a certain weapon, like what some want to call an assault rifle, and then on the other side, people are saying, no, this is for fun or practice, whatever it might be, hunting. It doesn't matter. A person should have the right to own firearms. And in an age of 3D printing, you're not going to stop it. We're too far down that rabbit hole now. America has a culture of firearms, so is the issue the guns themselves? Can we ban our way? And I don't believe we can. If you think about this rationally for a moment, anyone who knows firearms knows you could go down and buy 2 pistols and have 28 rounds right there. And with the longer magazines, more. I mean, the possibilities are endless regardless of the combination or choice and type of weapons people choose. What we're doing is ignoring why these people are doing this. Rather than tackling that, we're tackling the firearms themselves. When people have ill intent, they find a way to do it. In the past, we've banned things like ANFO, ammonium nitrate, fuel oil. That's how Timothy McVeigh took out the Oklahoma, building back in my day, the olden days. And this was around the same time when they were banning all different types of explosive compounds, and as well, I do believe that we should have limits on what we own. That's not the question. The issue is that we need to work harder on figuring out why people want to do things like this. Whether or not we can do something about it, I don't know. Mental health and isolation seem to be a major issue. And as much as I didn't want to look into this particular guy's past, I looked a little bit, and he'd had issues. Apparently, this is just allegedly issues with his mom. She had drug problems, and his grandma had threatened to kick her out because of her drug problems. And then there was all this apparently he was bullied when he was younger, and he'd been picked on in school, and in middle school he had a bad stutter as well as a lisp, and he was constantly bullied because of it. This is a very common story. It does not justify the things that people do. You can't use I've been bullied as an excuse to do these things. But the fact is, a lot of people do. And this is a major cultural problem that we have. You know, it has maybe it's you can't blame the movies and the video games. We've tried all blaming all different types of, media. But I would like to say that the underdog always seems to win in the video games and in the movies, and often it's the person who's been bullied, and people feel like they want revenge on the world. The thing is, it's not just about stopping the bullies, because there will always be bullies. That's my point. I grew up with firearms in my home all the time. My father had rifles and pistol, and I never touched them when he wasn't around. Never didn't even think about it. And I got bullied in school regularly. I moved like to 9 different places before I was out of school. All in the Portland area, way out to Hillsboro, then back down to Tigard. I moved to so many different places, I never really got to settle down and get to know any people at the schools I went to. And the first day in 6th grade, somebody, came up and said, the bully wants to kick your butt. I didn't even know the guy. I'd never even met him. It was that kind of a childhood. Then in high school, I had really bad acne, and I was made fun of, and it was what it was. But I never thought about taking it out on others. There may have been other people who didn't take it so easily. And just because I didn't, just because I was tough and I was able to fight through those things, doesn't mean that everyone can without others' help. And that's the point. We need to be able to help each other. We need to be able to recognize when people are having a hard time and talk to them. We need to be better stewards of ourselves and our neighbors, because if we aren't, we end up facing a future of mental health challenges that ends up with not just things like shootings, but homelessness, the crisis that we're seeing, the major addiction problem that we're seeing right now, that a lot of people want to point the finger at and say, well, it just shouldn't be there, and just wait for it to go away. It doesn't work. A lot of young men, especially, who get angry, and I'm speaking hopefully to anyone out there who is in this category, they might fall into the men going their own way, which is a movement of men basically who have had it with women. The kind of red pill men's movement, as well as this idea of the alpha male, and this ridiculous notion of what it means to be a man or a woman, and get into this kind of toxic relationship with women, believing that women should be a certain way or men should be a certain way. And this is important because if we don't have confidence in just who we are, then we never make it anywhere. I mean, we have to build up who we are. You can't expect when you're young to not be awkward, because we're all awkward. And I feel like people want too much too fast these days. We have no patience anymore. And so when it comes down to people being picked on, what I'm saying is that we really have to be stronger and teach each other to be stronger and deal with the things that we have to fight as we're growing up, and realize that things aren't so bad. And this means not encouraging people to blame entire groups for their problems, whether it be men or women. And, George Carlin was the king of general semantics. And he talked about so many of these cultural issues that we're facing. And comedians tend to be self-loathing. This is something that kind of shows up over and over. The comedians use comedy as an outlet for rough issues they've had in their lives, which, I'm not going to say that's universal. I don't know all the comedians, but I've heard so many stories of comedians who say, inside, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I don't know what to do. It's my outlet. Many musicians are the same way. But a lot of people don't have an outlet, and they build up that pressure. and nobody sees them or pays attention to them. And then one day they want to take it out on the world. As to why they want to do something, you know, why they would want to do something so horrific to a school. This is the question that really is hard to even discuss. Why would someone want to do that to a school? And an elementary school at that. What is to be gained? I've heard people say things like, we need metal detectors and armed guards and armed teachers. Say, apparently the guy came in a back door that was left unlocked. That's all it takes. And even then, a well-armed and prepared person could easily find his way in and deal with that issue of a guard. And the last thing, honestly, that I want in my schools with my kids is them to have a guy walking around with a rifle all day in their hallway. I mean, in some places it's that bad. And it's unfortunate. I mean, people are pulling their kids out of school left and right, but most people can't afford private schools. They have to send their kids to a local public school. And they're fearful that something like that might happen to their children. And all I can say about that is, it is a legitimate concern, but not a legitimate fear. I'm not going to talk about statistics because all it takes is one school, and that's bad enough. But, of all the millions of kids in this country, the likelihood is very slim that something like that would happen to us. We still have to be able to let our kids get out and explore the world. But, what do we do about the issue at hand? Because our kids, that the ones who go to these schools that we're worried about getting hurt at school, they're the same kids that are going to grow up to be those kids' ages. They're going to be 17, 18, 19. Our kids, how are they going to be? Are they going to be depressed? Are we going to recognize their problems? Are we able to even acknowledge our own kids? Because ultimately, it comes down to the parents. And I feel like in society, we're often rushed. It's hard to be a parent. I have 3 kids. I know how hard it is to be a present parent. You do everything you can to talk to your kids, but once they become teenagers, it's tricky for a while. Let's just say that. So, something I've noticed, and I know this might seem kind of off topic, but it's not, is that to watch out for the not funny man. I mean, as I said, some people use comedy to mask their pain or to deal with their anxiety or depression, but fear the person who's far too serious. I've found that people who don't laugh, people who don't have a real sense of humor and can't, especially be able to laugh at themselves, they might just be in a position where they need a little bit of help, or maybe that's just how they are. But, it's important that we recognize these things, I think, in each other, because society has become far too serious. And when young people are willing to do such horrendous things, all I can ask is why? What was it for? Was it to be infamous? Was it to do something worse than the last guy who everybody hates? Why would you want to be hated more than anyone in history? And what drives young people to do these things? I know that some people, some young men who have done these shootings in the past have been on medications. I'm not sure about Columbine, but I recall that happened on April 20th, 1999. And, I was 24 years old, so I was just out of high school a few years before that. And, just thinking about someone walking into my high school and doing something like that is, it's a wild thought. You think, wow, I mean, what would I do? And no matter how much you prepare, no matter how much you try to prepare the students or the teachers, it's like you never see which direction it's going to come from. You can only prepare so much. The best we can do is prepare our children to not become those monsters. And I don't know the easy answer. So we can't only blame the music, the violent games, but, I would say that it doesn't help that we kind of romanticize the military and we do make violence seem acceptable. And when I was younger, I kind of laughed at that idea. I still believe in a free press and freedom of speech first and foremost, and people should be able to say whatever they want, make whatever they want. And, there was a time when George Carlin, got arrested for saying the 7 words you shouldn't say when he was on stage, like in Milwaukee. Cops used to arrest people for dancing when they're not supposed to dance. I mean, freedom of expression is like first and foremost. So if a person, you know, a person should be able to say whatever they choose. But I also believe that we have a responsibility to one another to minimize the romanticizing of violence. All of us, I feel, deep down inside, especially men from the people I've talked to, especially men, definitely have a passion for things like instant karma, like an instant karma video where I've watched them where I just feel right inside when I see a person get their car smashed after trying to run somebody off the road and then they wreck their own car. Those kinds of things, you see that they deserved it and you instantly laugh at that. You think, why do I feel that way? Because we don't like assholes in this world. We have enough problems. We don't all agree with all the rules, okay? But we all try to follow them as much as we can. And sometimes people slip through the cracks and they feel like the whole world's coming down on them alone. Maybe they end up being the kind of person who would pick up a gun and do something like that. The question is, not can we stop people from feeling bad and fix all of the kids' problems. The question is, can we make everybody realize that we all sometimes feel bad and that we all get picked on and that we are all in the same boat here together? Because if we don't figure that out, I think that the most important thing is that the parents, the counselors, and the friends listen to the kids. And I mean listen. A lot of parents say, they talk about how you need to talk to your kids about this. Talk to your kids about drugs. Talk to your kids about sex. Talk to your kids about guns. But often we don't listen enough. And I found this to be absolutely true. Sometimes if I'm just quiet, my kid will get to talking and, it's amazing the kind of conversations we can have. And I take this very seriously because my kids are going to be at least going to school with potential sociopaths. And I believe that people can change. I believe that people, when they find the right group, can find solace in that and really a strong benefit in spending time with groups that they relate to. And the internet has allowed people to the ability to not have to go seek out those actual real groups and those real people that do real things, but rather often people who do sit in, dark rooms and hate the world and generally just want to cause trouble on the internet, and the kind of people who want to blame women for their problems or blame Jews for their problems. You know what I'm talking about. But, at least if that was a motive for what happened in Texas, I would understand it. But without a motive, I just don't get it. I don't understand. Why? Why would a person do something that fucking horrendous? I'm sure we'll either find out, maybe he left a manifesto and I'm not aware of it. I don't really want to follow the story, but I think it's important to talk about it. It makes me feel better. I was going to do this earlier today and I just didn't want to do it, but I had to. So there it is. And I appreciate your time and your opinion as well on this issue. Please leave a comment and let me know what you think. What should we do? I mean, I've tried to cover every aspect of this. I've said the reason I don't think that, gun control will work is because people will always find a way. It's really built into American culture. But, maybe not. Maybe it's just raising our kids better. You tell me. Y'all take care now. Talk to you next time.